I remember when we were just a couple of mocosos, causing trouble all the time and getting caught with babosos. But it was fun and we had so many good times. Me and you, we put our troubles behind. It was the two of us, kicking it day and night. Looking forward to the chance that we would get in a fight. Toe-to-toe street boxing, putazos cada día. Then we met up with some vatos that belong to a pandilla.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pocho Podcast. This is episode 12. It's been a little while. I've been uh, sort of busy on a couple of trips to Mexico, to San Luis, to Querétaro, various visits I had to make there, and then some work trips. So we're back on the podcast and going to discuss a little bit of things just to get back into the rhythm of things. And I will be doing, as you're seeing, a video accompanied to the podcast as well as the audio, as we typically do on podcast centers such as SoundCloud and all the rest. So for this, I just want to start. It was something that was interesting after watching UFC over the weekend. Dominick Reyes from California was fighting against John Jones in the UFC. Now, Dominick Reyes, he's a Mexican American. He was probably born and raised in California. And let's look at one of his post fight press conference questions that he was asked by a Spanish speaking journalist who was trying to get him to speak a little bit of Spanish. And this has happened previously with Cain Velasquez and even a Brazilian Verdum who speaks Spanish pretty well. Also, who also fought over the weekend, Shevchenko, who's a female fighter and champion. She spent some time in Peru, so she speaks some Spanish. But this guy got a little bit of humor going on by Nando. He says, when you visit the rancho for the first time in a long time, and Spanish is a little rusty. Let's hear what Dominick Reyes had to say after his fight.
I need you to translate that a little bit.
But your Spanish is good.
It's not great.
You try, please.
Not
Are
right.
you on the best level?
That's a lot of thinking right now.
Okay, you try in Spanish, please. No?
Not right now. Next question.
Okay.
That was pretty hilarious. Now, one thing he does say is that he says it's a lot of thinking right now, and you got to take into account his face. You can see like looking at the picture now, noticing his nose. This might be previous injuries, but he just took a beating in there for 5 rounds. He was barely able to walk. I think Dana White after the fight said he was carried back to the locker room. John Jones was hobbling. He hobbled to this press conference. He's been hit in the face. So the thinking, yeah, he does have a good point there. But even there, I don't know if he's ever spoken Spanish. He did walk out. His walkout was with the U.S. flag and the Mexican flag. So here on the Pocho Podcast, we like to analyze these types of things. I don't have no problem at all with him going out with the Mexican flag and the U.S. flag. That's cool. He goes out even if he doesn't speak Spanish. I mean, obviously he's a Pocho. He's from California. He can't speak Spanish very well. Maybe he speaks a little bit. But she said that she must have heard him speak before. She said that you know, he has good Spanish. Now I don't know what she is getting that off of. I've never heard him speak Spanish, but he didn't feel well enough to answer that question, and I believe he didn't even understand what the question was. That's why he was asking for a translation. So it's pretty funny by Nando making fun of him a little bit, and then of course we get the comments on hate, hating him and stuff like that. But no, not too many comments, but yeah, there you go. Little Pocho action for you guys on the podcast. Another thing on Twitter I saw going back to these Pochos, these Mexican Americans that are in the U.S. Now, when you're a Mexican American in the U.S., doesn't mean that you leave the U.S. or you leave Mexico or your parents left Mexico, your grandparents left Mexico, and you're all of a sudden you hate Mexico. I mean, you're not going to live there. You're not going to go back. Your parents aren't going to raise you up in the U.S. and you're not going to be playing Nintendo and eating hamburgers all your life. And then all of a sudden, you know what? My parents are from Mexico. I established myself well in the U.S. I make a good living. I have a good job. I think I'm going to go back to my country, go back to Mexico, and live there. I love Mexican soccer. I love all these things about Mexico. I love tacos. I'm here in the U.S., you know, pumping up the Mexican culture, but I don't think I'm gonna go back to Mexico. So that's the premise and that's the context I sort of want to bring back to this other topic, which was Max Bretos, uh, Rodolfo Landeros, who's Mexican, Mauricio Pedrosa, who's Mexican, and Hercules Gomez, who's Mexican American. I think Mauricio Pedrosa might be Mexican American, and Max Bretos, I think he's uh, South American American, if you want to call that. So, but they had a podcast in English, and they're talking about the LAFC Leon rivalry. And when LAFC goes to play Leon in Mexico, they brought up something interesting, specifically Hercules Gomez, who has played in the Mexican League and who has played in MLS. Let's hear what he said.
It's one thing to go into Portland Stadium or Seattle Stadium or Atlanta Stadium where it's packed and there's noise, but they're not hostile. You don't have, excuse the term, you don't have bags of urine being thrown at you. You don't have batteries being thrown at you.
You put them against El Volcán with the
So he brings it up. He pretty much says it, and you can see Mao's face right there. Of what are you talking about? He says, excuse the term, batteries, bags of urine. Liga MX Reddit replies, batteries and urine being thrown at you? I absolutely hate how American media has continued to push this false narrative that Mexican team fans throw urine and batteries at opposing teams to belittle Mexican fans. People don't throw urine, they throw beer. That was Albert, of course, brings back. This is sort of what was talked about a lot in the 2000s, and that's true. Wiso gives his little thing about the hostile environment. The Americans always trying to go at you. All of a sudden, Hercules Gomez is an American now. He's not a Mexican American. Somewhere played in that league for years. I don't think he's trying to push a narrative. Sounds more like first-hand experience. Okay. Mexicans. I have. Some narratives that the Mexican media pushes when it's in 3 versus Central American countries. I would throw my urine at Max and Herc. Okay. So, I mean, there you go. That's
It's one thing to go into.
Let's get to this. I just want to get to this face capture here. Where are you at? Mauricio. There we go. So, everyone's quick to defend. Everyone's quick to defend the Mexicans. Now, it could be rumors. It could be very much like everyone is saying, just a narrative, just something that you see liquids flying in the air, which we know beer flies all the time. There was back in the 2000s, like Albert was saying, there was talks of people vomiting, like sticking their finger. I think I saw a post of someone saying that they saw a person, a Mexican fan, and maybe Azteca or someplace, stick their finger in their mouth, vomit into a bag, and then throw it at the American fans. And then we've always heard of batteries and all these things. And truthfully, do you think that wouldn't happen? Do you think that doesn't happen? I mean, we've seen in Liga MX, we've seen Pumas fans, we've seen America fans, we've seen the passion and the craziness that sometimes goes. Recently, Atlas fans were kicked out of the stadium for being unruly. There's been fights in Guadalajara started by throwing a girl throwing something from the stands, starting a brawl. We've seen all these things happen in club stadiums and also national team games in the stadiums. Where do you really think it's surprising that maybe somebody might vomit in a bag or piss in a bag and throw it at someone, or might get batteries and throw it at someone? I believe a few years ago when all this narrative was going on, started, there was an article that came out about the Boston Red Sox that, there's batteries thrown in a Boston Red Sox game, at a baseball game in the United States. There are crazy people everywhere. I would not be surprised if, yes, uh, items have been thrown. Non-beer liquids somehow have been, thrown. The outrage of these Mexican American dudes, uh, and their Mexican pride coming out to defend the patria is sort of funny because they're not in the patria. They're in the United States, where they are quote unquote safe, I guess, from all this intimate knowledge of what really goes down in the stadiums. Yeah, sure, they go every now and then to a game down in Mexico, but it's not yeah, I'm a season ticket holder. Or, yeah, I go to, 20 games a season, 20 games a year, uh, different Liga MX teams, different Liga MX games. So the intimate knowledge is not even there to know if such a claim is, bollocks, which I wouldn't have a problem saying it is. I would like to see some evidence, some experience, anecdota that Hercules Gomez or whoever makes such claims that says, yes, this indeed happened, or look at this article, this is evidence of a video or a picture of a battery that was found on the field. Show something to back up your claims. Hercules Gomez replies to Wiso, if getting Agüita de Riñón thrown on you isn't hostile, then I don't know what is. So he sort of deflects. And then Wiso comes on and says, what about the, what about the batteries? Yeah, he said, what about the batteries? And, there's no reply to that. I think Hercules Gomez overextended himself, stuck his foot in his mouth a little bit. If he had some evidence, if he had, some experience while being in Liga MX when he played there, or even, I don't know if he played in MLS and then played against the Liga MX team. I know the opposite was the case when he was at Santos. He played Seattle or somebody in a CONCACAF Champions game. But that was just something that's, sort of interesting how, everyone's quick to attack and quick to defend Mexico. But, hostile, it's hostile. It can be hostile. Now, of course, they're separated from the fans. You never know what could happen. They're not there with the fans. They're not going to fight with the fan. Projectiles being thrown is, obviously something that truly does happen. Usually it's drinks or water bottles and things like that. But these projectiles that he's talking about, there hasn't been any specific evidence to that happening recently. And so that's why all these guys go out to the defense. In the past, it's come up. I think he just brings it up maybe for some clicks. I don't know. He says, excuse the term, and he says, bags of pee and stuff. Now, sure, don't defend Mexico and say, okay, that's fine. That may have happened in Mexico, but who's to say it doesn't happen in the United States? Who's to say something worse doesn't happen in the United States? Batteries have been proven to be thrown in a baseball game. I recall directly. I can even probably go and look up the article where it was shown. I think a picture of a battery was shown as well. So, it's not a pretty picture. I go down to Mexico. I have cousins, and they say, let's go to a game. I say, let's go to a Pumas America game. They will directly tell me, no, let's not do that. Let's go to a different game. Why? Because it's not, the fans are not welcoming. Well, okay, let's just say probabilities of getting something, of having an incident in an America Pumas game in the stands is higher than a Pumas, say, Juarez game or a Cruz Azul Pachuca. That's the fact. So if you want to have an enjoyable time, go to one of those games instead of a Pumas America game. If you want to have an enjoyable time in a Pumas America game, go on the palco. Go with the owners. Go in the media section. There you go. The stands with the fans, with the hostility. see, yes, it does exist. Yes, Hercules Gomez has, a point. But as far as what his point was with the LAFC going down there, there might LAFC's probably gonna, have jeers and whistles against them more so than they would at any other MLS stadium. But that's part of the game. They're still separated from that. They're on the field. The fans and all these jeers and whistles are in the state and the stands. So there's a separation. Hercules trying to hype it up is just totally separate. Trying to hype up and exaggerate or exacerbate the word hostile, which does exist, but to exacerbate it and to make it more meaningful in this video seems a little bit like clickbait. So thanks for joining this episode of the podcast. We'll see you guys next. Hopefully I get a chance to get some guys on. I have a couple of guys I want to interview, so we will hopefully be able to bring that to you in the future. Thank you.
But to me, it seemed like it will never be through. After they rushed us, they came and shook our vices. Now they respect us before they despised us. We're in a gang now, but it's immoral. Me and my homie became two down cholos. I remember you, homie. I remember you, homie. I remembered you like if it was yesterday.